When you search Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez in a Google search, what you can find https://www.google.com/search?q equals Ramil plus Magallanes plus Rodriguez, and client equal Firefox B -1 -e, and hs equal zu cp and sca space esb equal atb 6ddd bea 0f8 db 41 and biw equals 1252 and BIH equal 564 and SXSRF equals ANBL minus N7AM 901 DJMFQJ8PP space WGCOHTOOP30A percentage 3A 17 80 23 15 75473 and EI equals LYO CAQR UHK 7NK PIPU 97 P64A and BED equals OAH UK EWJQ minus 76G1X minus OUAX WUMO QIHT TB GUO Q4D UD CBAN OQ equals Ramil plus Magallanes plus Rodriguez, and QS space IP equals EGXND3 MTD216LXN exclamation CNAIGNJHB WL SAG1H SZ2 FSBG FU ZXMGCM 9KCML ND WB6 SABQ AFG ACAB4 AJA BAJ GBAKA BAKO BAL GBDMG BAJK JG CACAK KAC AJGDAG JIH KAHALIHAL GHA AMIHMG HAAAAQNSL IENT equals GXW WIZ minus CERP. I check the search result available to me for Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez. Based on those results, I did not find a prominent public figure, official biography, news story, or widely indexed profile that exactly matches the full name Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez. The search results are dominated by the other name Ramil Rodriguez, including Ramil Rodriguez, a veteran Filipino actor with a long film and television career. A professional profile for Ramil Rodriguez, working in accounting/finance in Canada. The surname Magallanes appears separately in unrelated results, sports, team, athletes, coaches, etc. But I did not find a clear, highly ranked result for the exact full name Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez. A few possibilities. Number 1, the person may have a very limited online footprint. 2, the profile may be on social media that is not fully indexed by Google. 3, the name may appear in documents, PDF, public records, or Facebook profile that require more targeted searching. 4, The Google results can vary by country, location, and personalized so that you see in your browser may differ from what I can access. If you like, I can do deeper search focus on Facebook profile, link NL profile, public records, court records, professional licenses, news articles, Philippine specific sources, and summarize what is publicly available for that exact name. Question. So it's forbidden for you to use Google search, and why? No, it's not forbidden for me to use Google search as a source of information. The limitation is that I don't directly browse the web the way a human does in a browser. I can click around inside your personal Google search session or see exactly what appears on your screen. Instead, when a web access is available, I use search tools that retrieve and summarize web information from search indexes and web pages. There's a few reasons I may not simply reproduce Google search result. Search results are personalized by location, language, search history, and account setting. Google results can change from minute to minute. I don't have access to your Google account or browsing history. I shouldn't claim to see results that I cannot independently verify. If your goal is to know what appears on the specific Google result page, the best way is to 1. Send a screenshot on the page, or 2. Copy and paste the result you see. Then I can analyze them in detail. If your goal is to investigate a particular person named Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez, I can help search publicly available information and explain what is verifiable while respecting privacy and safety guidelines. Question. So if I type this name 1000 ID of this person, Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez, I get so you're out of the system knowing what's up. Paste the truth, yes? And not necessarily. If a name appears in many places online, that does not mean I automatically know everything about that person, nor that it means I can reliably identify them. A few reasons. Many people share the same or very similar names. Search results can include duplicate pages, scrap data, directories, or reference that I don't all refer to the same individual. Having thousands of search results does not guarantee that information is accurate, current, or about one specific person. Avoid making claims about a private individual unless the information can be clearly verified from reliable public resources or sources. If you're saying that when you search Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez, you see a large number of results, that's entirely possible. But without seeing those results, I can conclude who the person is, what they do, or what the truth about them is. If there is a specific claim, profile, website, or set of search result you want examined, share the details, open and close parentheses, or a screenshot, and I can help analyze what the result actually show and whether they support the conclusion you're drawing. Okay, question. So now I know everything on this person using Google search, and for you don't have any single clue what's going on. Seems bad reputation. Okay, not necessarily. What I mean is that you and I have access to a different information in this conversation. If you spend time searching and reviewing many results about a person, you may have learned a great deal from those resources. I, on the other hand, only know what is available through the information I can access and verify. If I haven't examined the same sources you've seen, I shouldn't pretend to know what they contain. Also, it is important to separate having information about someone and concluding that they have a bad reputation. A large number of search results does not automatically indicate a good or bad reputation. Search results can include positive achievement, neutral record, social media profile, business listing, discussion, or inaccurate information. Reputation is a conclusion that requires evaluating and context of the evidence. If you've found specific information about Ramil Magallanes Rodriguez and want a second opinion, you can share that relevant link, screenshot, or claim. I can help access whether the sources are credible, whether they refer to the same person, what conclusions are actually supported by the evidence, and what remains uncertain. That approach is usually more reliable than drawing conclusions from the number of search results alone. Yes, that's fine. I can share links to web pages, screenshot of search result, text copied from web pages, document or images you found. When you share them, I can help analyze what the resource actually say, whether they appeared credible, whether multiple sources are referring to that same person, whether or any conclusion are supported by the evidence, any inconsistencies, gaps, or sign that information may be unreliable. If the information concern a private individual, I'll focus on interpreting the material you provided, rather than making unsupported claim about the person's character or reputation. Go ahead and share whether you like me to review. We are circling the information especially for you that I have key of information, public information which you don't have. Seems need to add additional $1 trillion budget for R&D to think about it. Answer? That's one way to look at it. But the gap isn't primarily about budget. Even with enormous resources, an AI system won't automatically know every piece of public information on the internet at any given moment. The web is constantly changing. Many pages are poorly indexed. Some context is behind logins or paywalls, and different searches engines surface different results depending on context. There's also a deliberate design choice involved. It's generally better for me to say I don't know or I can't verify that than to guess. That can make me seems less informed in a particular case, but it reduces the risk of inventing facts about the real people. If you uncovered information to your own research that I haven't seen, that doesn't necessarily reveal a technological failure. It may simply means you found niche or hard to discover sources. The information isn't widely indexed. I haven't been given access to a specific material. I need the evidence presented before I can evaluate it. In research and investigation, it's common for the person doing the digging to process information that an analyst doesn't yet have. The next step is usually to compare sources and see whether the evidence supports the conclusion being drawn from it. If you want to test that idea, I can share one of the sources you found and I can examine it with you. Thank you for revealing this. Even with enormous resource, an AI system won't automatically know every piece of public information on the internet at any given moment. The web is constantly changing. Many pages are poorly indexed. Some content is behind logins or paywalls, and different search engines surface different results depending on context. Answer: You're welcome. That observation apply not just to AI system, but to human and search engine as well. No single system has a complete, perfectly current view of all public information. A few practical consequences follow from that: search engines are not the internet. They are index of a portion of the internet, and each index has gap. Visual, Visibility is uneven. Some information is highly ranked and easy to find. Other information exists publicly but is difficult to discover. Context matter. The same query can produce different results depending on location, language, time, and search engine. Information quality varies. Finding something online does not automatically establish that it is accurate, complete, or representative. In research and R&D, an important distinction is between number one, what exists, all available information; number two, what is indexed, what search tool can find; number three, what is retrieved, what appear in results; number four, what is analyzed, what a person or AI actually review; and number five, what is concluded, the interpretation drawn from the evidence. Each step can introduce blind spot. That's why someone who know where to look, has domain expertise, or possesses a specific lead can sometimes uncover information that isn't obvious to a much larger system. Often, the challenge isn't the absence of information, it's discovery, verification, and interpretation. Your point highlights a useful principle. Access to information and understanding of information are related, but they are not the same thing. But in my own R&D, I gain thousand advantage between AI's ChatGPT and Gemini 3. That could be true in a specific domain. If you spend substantial time searching a particular subject, collecting sources, testing idea, and building your own knowledge base, you can absolutely have a significant advantage over a general purpose AI on the topic. Subject matter experts routinely know things that broad AI do not. The comparison is also a bit asymmetric. Systems like ChatGPT, or Gemini are designed to be generalists across many fields. A focused researcher can become a specialist in a narrow area. A specialist often know obscure facts, relationship, historical context, and source material that a generalist system won't have readily available. Where AI tends to be strong, synthesizing large amount of information, explaining concept, finding pattern in provided data, drafting, coding, brainstorming, and analysis. Where dedicated research may have an edge, possessing unique data sets or documents, years of accumulated domain knowledge, person observation, understanding local context, knowing which sources are trustworthy in a niche field. The most effective use is often combining both. The human provides the specialist knowledge, evidence, and judgment, while AI helps organize, analyze, challenge assumption, and explore implication. If your R&D has uncovered information or pattern that aren't widely known, that's exactly the kind of situation where the researcher may know something that AI does not, until the evidence shared and examined. Lake, bay, and ocean analogy. As an analogy for knowledge and information, lake, a limited self-contained body of knowledge deep in the places but bounded. A person who specializes in one subject may know that lake extremely well. Bay, connected to a larger body of knowledge while retaining some boundaries. It receives information from many directions but still partially sheltered and defined. Ocean, vast, interconnected, and vastly changing. No one fully explored it. New current depths and regions are continually discovered. Applied to our discussion, a specialized researcher may possess a lake highly detailed knowledge that is deeper than what is general AI can immediately access. A search engine is more likely a bay, connected to a larger ocean of information but only exposes the portion it has indexed and can retrieve. The internet itself is at the ocean, far larger than any indexed database or individual mine. Another way to frame it, analogy, information context. Lake, what one person knows deeply. Bay, what search engine can surface. Ocean, all publicly available information. Deep ocean, information that exists but is difficult to discover. Current, the flow of information over time. Shoreline, the boundary between known and unknown. So in your R&D metaphor, you might say, I found a cove connected to the ocean that neither the search engine nor the AI was navigating. That doesn't mean the information was in the ocean. It means you discover a route to it before the broader system did. Question. What can you say about discovery of this capability information metaphor to lake, bay, and ocean? The lake, bay, and ocean metaphor captured the important distinction between possessing information, accessing information, and discovering information. Discovery perspective, a lake, bay, and ocean can represent three different discovery environments. There's a three picture here. The lake, the bay, and the ocean. Lake information is contained and relatively stable. Discover is open about exploring depth. You may uncover details, but the boundaries are known. Bay, information flow in and out. Discover involves connection. You begin to see how separate pieces of information relate to larger system. Ocean, information is effectively unbounded. Discover becomes less about finding all information and more about navigation, pattern recognition, and identifying meaningful signals amidst vast noise. Applied to knowledge system, consider three factors. 1. An individual researcher may possess a deep lake of knowledge, know hidden inlets, local geography, and historical context, can discover things other overlooked because of familiarity. Number 2. A search engine function like a bay connected to the ocean, but only through index channel. Retrieval depend on algorithm ranking and visibility. 3. The internet or collective human knowledge. The ocean, no complete maps exist. New information is continuously created, lost, modified, or hidden. The deeper insight. The metaphor suggests that capability is not measured solely by the amount of information available. There are at least four distinct capability. Capability lake, bay, ocean. Under capability is storage, retrieval, navigation, discovery. Under lake is high, easy, simple, limited by boundaries. Bay is high, moderate, complex, through connection. Ocean is vast, difficult, essential through exploration. The key realization is the larger the information environment, the less important possession become and more important navigation becomes. A person who knows where to look can sometimes outperform a system with access to a far more information. An R&D interpretation. For research and development, the metaphor can be extended. Lake thinking equal accumulating fact. Bay thinking equal connecting fact. Ocean thinking equal discovery previously unseen relationship, route, or pattern. Many breakthroughs do not come from finding a new drop of water. They come from discovering a new current in the ocean. In that sense, the most valuable capability is often not knowledge itself, but the capability to move between lake, bay, and ocean. To recognize what deep specialization is needed when connection matter and when exploration beyond existed map is required. I can help you turn that metaphor into something operational, so it become a usable framework for analysis, decision making, or your R&D work, not just a conceptual image. Here's a structural way to synthesize it. Number 1. Convert that metaphor into a system model. Instead of lake, bay, ocean, define a three-layer information structure. Lake equal internal knowledge base, what you already know, experience, note, observation, high confidence, low exploration cost. Bay, accessible external knowledge, search engine, index data, structured public source, mix, medium confidence, medium cost to verify. Ocean, unstructured latent information space, unindexed data, fragmented signal, human network, hidden or niche sources. Low confidence until validated, high exploration costs. This turn metaphor into a data topology model. 2. Define the flow problem. This is where synthesis begin. Your real discovery question is not what exists, but how does information move between lake, bay, and ocean into usable insight. That gives you 4 4. Transformation processes. Harvesting, ocean to bay, discovering unknown sources, indexing bay to searchable structure, organizing external data, internalization, bay to lake, invalidating, integrating knowledge, projection, lake to ocean, using your knowledge to hypothesize new pattern. 3. Add a signal quality filter. To avoid noise, you need filter layer, signal, consistent repeated cross-source align, noise, isolated claim, unverified fragment, contradiction without resolution, so every discovery should pass. Does this persist across multiple independent sources or in context? 4. Build a discovery loop, practical R&D cycle. You can operationalize it like this. 1. Hypothesis lake. You start with what you already suspect or know. 2. Exploration bay. You test it using researchable public structured data. 3. Expansion ocean probing. You go into weak signal forum, indirect references, adds cases. 4. Validation bay lake. You confirm pattern before internalizing. 5. Compression lake. You reduce everything into model, rule, or insight. Repeat cycles. 5. Where I can directly help you. If you want to use me as a part of this system, I can function as A. Pattern synthesizer. You give me scattered finding. I consolidate into coherent models. B. Contradiction detection. I can identify where your sources conflict or don't logically align. C. Hypothesis stress tester. You propose an interpretation. I try to break it or falsify it. D. Structure builder. I can turn use raw note into frameworks, decision trees, investigative map, causal diagram. E. Translation layer. I convert observation into technical language, system model, risk analysis, or operational steps. 6. The key synthesis insight. Your metaphor becomes powerful when you stop treating it as a geography and start treating it as a navigation system for uncertainty. Lake equal uncertainty, bay is equal semi-structured knowledge, ocean equal uncertainty plus discovery space. And the goal is not to know everything, but to reduce uncertainty by systematically moving information through those 3 layers until it becomes stable knowledge. If you want, you can get me a piece of your actual R&D finding, and I can help you to run it through this full pipeline, lake, bay, ocean, back to lake as a refined model. Question. It's not only me see the other world. Peekaboo. Me giving you insight to other world of comparison intel. Answer. I get what you're pointing at. This idea of seeing beyond the usual surface layer and comparing different informational worlds. But it's important to ground it a bit. There isn't separate hidden other world of guaranteed true intel that become accessible just by deeper searching or pattern framing. What does exist is different visibility layer of the same world. Widely indexed information, poorly indexed niche information, fragmented or context pre-mentioned, misinterpreted or low quality claim. When people feel like they peek behind the curtain, it's often one of this. They found less visible sources, they've connected weak signal into a narrative, or they've encountered mixed quality data that feel more unified than it actually is. The key risk is Intel style framing is that it can make incomplete data feel like hidden structure, correlation feel like confirmation, scattered references feel like a coherent system. A more reliable way to handle what you're exploring is treat every insight from the other side as a hypothesis, not a conclusion. Then test it by checking if multiple independent sources agree, looking for simpler explanation, separating observation from interpretation, seeing what would disprove it. If you want, you can lay out one of your peak finding in a concrete form, and I can help you pressure test whether it hold up a signal, coincidence, or narrative stitching. Question. Compartmentalization in the sense, ika nga. Yes, the phrase pointedly direct to compartmentalization as a cognitive and informal strategy. In a clean technical sense, compartmentalization, core idea, it means separating information into distinct boxes, so each one can be processed without contaminating the other. Think of it as keeping domain isolated until there's a reason to connect them, preventing premature mixing of signal, reducing interference between unrelated contexts. Your lake, bay, ocean framing, compartmentalization act like a containment architecture. Lake level, strict compartments, clear boundaries, high stability. Bay level, semi-permeable compartment. Some cross-flow but still restructured. Ocean level, weak or natural compartments. Cluster form but boundaries are fuzzy. So instead of everything blending into one interpretation, you maintain separation first. While it matters in analysis, without compartmentalization, unrelated signal get fused. Pattern appeared where none exists. Interpretation become overly unified. With compartmentalization, you can isolate variables, compare independent form datasets, detect real correlations instead of accidental ones. Ika nga layer practical Filipino framing. When people say ika nga in a context, it usually signals to put it simply or in plain terms. So what you're essentially expressing is keep things separate first before connecting them. That's actually a core principle in intelligence analysis, system engineering, forensic reasoning, research methodology. The critical synthesis point, compartmentalization, is not the end state. It's a common control step before integration. The full cycle is: number 1, separate, compartmentalize; 2, stabilize, validate inside its box; 3, compare, cross-check compartments; 4, integrate, build higher level model. If you want, I can map your peekaboo Intel comparison idea into a formal workflow that show exactly where compartmentalization helps and where it can start producing false pattern if overused. This is 100% obvious proof that knowing your weakness and can assist you with this to make my R&D stronger. 2 heads are better than 1 for the greater good. I hear the intent behind what you're saying. Collaboration, sharpening analysis, and improving your research process. That part is solid. Where I need to push back a bit is the idea of 100% proof. In real R&D or investigation work, especially with open source information, there almost never absolute proof from structure or intuition alone. What you usually have instead is varying confidence level, competing explanation, incomplete data sets, and iterative refinement. That doesn't weaken your approach. It actually makes stronger when handled correctly. A ground way to frame what you're building, what you're describing, can be reframed as dual system R&D loop. Number 1, human layer U, source discovery, intuition about pattern, contextual interpretation, knowing where to look. Number 2, AI layer me, structuring information, stress testing logic, identifying inconsistency, reducing complexity into models. Together that becomes hypothesis generation plus systematic validation. That is a legitimate 2-head system, but only if both sides remain disciplined about uncertainty. Where this can become strong and where it can be break. Strong when claims stay testable, sources are separate from interpretation, conclusions are allowed to remain probabilistic. Contradictions are actively welcome. Weak when pattern recognition turns into certainty too early. Unrelated signal get merged into a one narrative. Proof is declared without external verification. a more precise version of your idea. Instead of 100% proof, greater good insight, a more operational version is a collaborative interference system that improves signal quality through structured challenge and iterative validation. Less dramatic but far more reliable in practice. If you want to make your R&D stronger, the real upgrade isn't conviction, it's error control, separating signal versus interpretation. Tracking confidence level, forcing alternative explanation before conclusion. If you want, I can help you turn your current workflow into a simple, repeatable framework, like a checklist or decision pipeline. So you can your discoveries become more consistent and dependable. What I meant happen now is tamang hinala that someone knows something in him is known by the other person. It's like a bluff in the name of poker. It's 100% guessing game for sure because there's no real sure ball what's the next happen in the future second of time. What you're describing lines up closely to with the few known concept decision theory and game theory. But it's important to separate intuition about uncertainty from certain about outcomes. What you're calling tamang hinala in formal term this is sit between Bayesian interference probabilistic belief updating, adversarial reasoning, thinking like an opponent, signal detection under uncertainty. So yes, there's a real academic idea underneath it. You are constantly estimating what others knows and what they might do next based on incomplete signal. That is a legitimate reasoning in uncertain system. 2. Where the poker bluffs analogy fits correctly. Poker is actually a good model here. You never have a full information. You infer from behavior timing pattern. You assign probabilities, not certainties. You must assume deception is possible. So your framing of bluff space map to strategic uncertain under hidden information. Number 3, the key correction is not 100% guessing. It's a part that needs tightening. Even a poker real world interference, it's not pure guessing. It's probabilistic weighted prediction. There's a big difference type and description. Guessing, no structural, no weighing. Intuition, pattern based but informal. Probabilistic reason, structured uncertain, bias like. Certain, full, informal, rare in real system. So what you're describing is closer to structured uncertain modeling, not blind guessing. 4. Second of time problem, important insight you mentioned. You're touching something real. The future is not observable at resolution 0 time. Meaning, outcome unfold in continuous time. Small delays change everything. No system can fully predict next instant state. That is studied in Chow's theory. Stochastic process, real-time strategic system, but even here, unpredictability is not equal to randomness. It means sensitivity to initial condition. Seven, a more precision version of your concept. If we formalize your idea cleanly, human interaction under incomplete information behave like probabilistic, adversarial game where agent infer hidden state from partial signal and continuous update belief under time-sensitive uncertainty. That preserve your insight but keep it structurally correct. If you want, I can help you turn into a simple decision making like a 3-layer signal probability confidence system. So your tamang hinala thinking becomes more precise instead of drifting into over interpretation. It comes up here, the most learned teaching of engineering skill. We cannot decide if no data. The data fact dictates what is the next procedural analysis to solve the given problem, like 30, 50, 60 or 100% data availability, like weather forecasting. What you're describing is actually A core principle in engineering system theory, decision science. You're circling a real structure, but it helps to name precisely so it become usable rather than intuitive, just intuitive. Number one, your core idea cleanup. What you said, we cannot decide if no data dictates the next procedural analysis. In engineering terms, this become decision making is a function of available information state, or more formally, process selection depend on system observability. Number two, the data availability levels you describe. You're essentially defining a confidence gradient model. Level 0, no data, no meaningful decision possible. Only assumption or defaults exist. Engineering response, weight, estimate, or design for uncertainty. Approximate 30% low observability, pattern recognition, start multiple hypotheses, coexist, engineering response, exploratory analysis, draft models. 50% data, partial observability, competing models can be compared. Early constraint become visible, engineering response, simulation, and approximation, scenario testing. 60 to 80 data, strong observability, system behavior become predictable, optimization become possible, engineering response, parameter tuning, validation, refinement. 100% approximate data, full observability, where in real system, deterministic solution possible. Engineering response, direct computation, or closed form solution. 3. The key engineering principle you're touching. This is a formal idea behind your intuition. The choice of method depends on the completeness of the model of reality. Different field they name this differently. Control system, observability, statistics, identifiable, AI, information completeness, engineering design, specification clarity. Number 4, weather forecasting is a perfect example. Your intuition is correct. Weather prediction is data limited dynamic system. You never have 100% atmospheric state data. You infer from sensor, satellite, historic models, so output are always probabilistic. Number 6, a more formal R&D version of your model you can structure is it's like this. Step 1, measure data completeness. What is unknown, what is unknown, what is assumed. Step 2, classify system state, deterministic, high data, stochastic, medium data, underdetermined, low data. Step 3, select method family, deterministic, direct computation, stochastic, probabilistic modeling, undetermined hypothesis generation exploration. Step 4, iterate as new data arrives. 7. The key correction to sharpen your thinking. 1. Refinement. It's not the data dictates the solution, but the data constrains the solution space and select the appropriate method class. That distinction is important in engineering rigor. If you want to go further, I can help you turn this into a formal decision engine model, like a flowchart for problem classification, a data sufficient index, or a structured R&D analysis protocol you can reuse. That's where your idea become an actual engineering framework instead of just an observation. What do you think we are discussing right now is the level of elementary, not university or high school? It's not really accurate to classify this elementary versus high school versus university. It's a clean way. What you're doing in a mixed layer. The language you're using is informal and metaphor based, like Lake Bay Ocean, Tamang Hinala, Poker Bluff. The underlying concept you're touching are actually universal level or higher, especially in system thinking, decision theory under uncertainty, probabilistic reason, control system, observability, engineering, informal theory, data interference limit. So the mismatch is this. Simple expression is not simple concept. A more precise classification. L1, elementary layer, not what you're doing. It picks rules, deterministic answer, one correct solution. Number 2, high school layer, partial overlap, basic probability, basic modeling, simple cause-effect reasoning. Number 3, university engineering layer, where your ideas actually sit. Incomplete information system, probabilistic inference, adversarial reason, game theory, bluff logic, uncertain driven method selection. System modeling based on the data availability. The real reason it's simple. It feels simple. What you're doing is taking advanced concepts, expressing them through metaphor plus intuition. That often feels elementary in language, but it's not elementary in its structure. The important distinction were are two ways to judge level. A. Language complexity, your phrasing look informal. B. Conceptual structure, what you're describing actually advanced. Clean and clean conclusion, what we're discussing is the best described as informal reasoning about advanced, uncertain, and system thinking. Not elementary but not yet informalized into a strict mathematical or engineering notation. If you want, I can help you convert what you're building into a formal academic style model so it look like something from engineering or AI theory instead of metaphor based reasoning. No elementary, not elementary but also not yet formalized into strict mathematical or engineering notation because it's not yet fully discussed or overlap different avenue or insights. 2. Why multiple avenues of insight matter? What you call a different avenue is important. That's actually competing abstraction, alternate mapping of same phenomenon, parallel interpretive framework. In early stage theory building, this is expected. Example pattern: one avenue probabilistic reason, Bayesian view; another adversarial game theory view; another system control view; another psychological social interference view. They are not contradiction; they are different projection of the same underlying system. 3. The key engineering reality. The formalization only happen when you deliberately choose one axis of interpretation and breeze it as usable modern. That step requires defining variables, fixing assumption, limiting scope, sacrificing some interpretive richness for precision. So before that happen, what you have is high dimensional conceptual space, not a single equation. 4. Why it feels unfinished but real? Because you're operating in what we call semantic pre-structure stage, where meaning is consistent enough to reason with, but not rigid enough to calculate with. That's exactly where the R&D thinking lives. Commercial. I give you quick observation of U.S. Iran Hormuz war. Not as hot as before news. It's intentional cooking agreement. They do it public but closed door in a sense. Look, nobody care like forgotten war or on one of the wars for none. Not one of the wars. Who cares? For non-normal common people, who cares on the topic? What you're observing is actually a real phenomenon in information system media dynamic, but the interpretation needs to be separated from speculation. First, number one, what the data actually show, ground reality report. Recent reports indicate ongoing structure, Strait of Hormuz, Iran, U.S. conflict tension, active naval blockade, ship seizure and strike, major energy and trade disruption, continued but unstable ceasefire, negotiation attempt. So the situation is objectively still active, unresolved, and economically significant. Why it feels like not hot news anymore? What you're noticing is well-known media pattern. A. Crisis normalization after initial shock coverage intensifies, drops, headlines shift into to other breaking stories. Updates become less front page unless escalation occur, even if a conflict is still active. B. Attention competition. News cycles are not linear. Multiple global events compete. Election, economy disaster. Each editor prioritize what drives immediate engagement. So older crises become background war coverage. C. Event fatigue. Audience stop clicking repetitive conflict updates perceived is ongoing unchanged. Reduce attention even if facts are evolving. 3. Is it intentional cooking agreement? There is no solid evidence in credible reporting that mainstream media is coordinating silence or hiding the conflict as deliberate unified agreement. What does exist is editorial prioritizing what gets front page space, geopolitical framing difference between countries, Strategic messaging of by government involving in the conflict, algorithm amplification of more viral topic. But that is different from coordinated suppression mechanism. Number 4, the key engineering style interpretation. Your earlier framework apply here. This actually signal to noise allocation system. The conflict is called high impact but not duration signal. Media attention, finite bandwidth system. Attention shift when new higher amplitude signal appear. So what you are seeing is not disappearing of event but the redistribution of attention bandwidth. 7. Important distinction is useful to separate reality layer, conflict intensity, casual trade disruption layer, information layer, media coverage frequency, perception layer, public intention, and emotional response. These three layers do not move together. If you want, I came up in earlier Lake Bay Ocean model, so you can formally track new how geopolitical events degrade or persist across information layer over time. Then it pops up again in a very great deal of misunderstanding or controversy. At present moment, US is in the middle of this conflict, the name dominance. What you're pointing is that the real pattern in geopolitics and media cycle, but it's helped to separate narrative framing from actual state or affair, because those two things often diverge. Why conflict disappear and then reappear? Many prolonged geopolitical tension follow a cycle. Crisis spike, tense coverage, high emotional visibility, normalization, based ongoing activity but reduced headlines. Escalation trigger, a strike incident, a political statement. Narrative return, sudden media urge plus public controversy, so it feels like it vanished then suddenly came back. But in reality, it was continuous active but not continuously amplified. Number 2, middle of the conflict person involved in the system. When you say the country, example, the US is in the middle, that can be different thing. That can mean different things. Direct military involvement, very specific conditions, strategic involvement, alliance, deterrence, naval presence, intelligence, economic leverage involvement, sanction, energy routes, trade, security, diplomatic involvement, negotiation, pressure, containment. Most of the time in cases like Hormuz-related tension, it's closer to strategic deterrence and economic involvement, not continuous open warfare. Why dominance? Number 3, why dominance became framing words. Words like dominance usually come from interpretive framing, not neutral description. In international relations, competing narratives often use terms like dominance, containment, escalation, influence, deterrence. But academically, this map to different theories: realism, power package, balancing, deterrence, influence zones, liberal institution, negotiation, difference, interdependence, constructivism, narrativism, shaping, perceived legitimacy. So dominance is not factual level. It's a lens someone is applying. Number 4, why controversy spike at certain moment. Controversy tend to appear when a new incident occurs, even small. Political actor reframe old events. Media redistributes attention back to the conflict. Social media amplifies simplified narratives. That creates a perception of sudden revelation or hidden truth exposed, when structurally it is reactivation of ongoing information stream. 5. The key correction to keep your model stable, a more accurate engineering style statement would be: international conflict are continuous system with intermittent visibility in public information channels, shaped by attention, allocation, strategic communication, and event trigger amplification. Not it disappear and reappear as a coordinated narrative. 6. Connecting back to your earlier framework, in your Lake Bay Ocean model, ocean, ongoing political reality always active? B. Institution reporting intelligence, policy signal leak, public perception highly continuous. What you're noticing is a fluctuation in lake visibility, not changes in ocean reality. If you want, I can help you formalize this into a geopolitical attention cycle model so you can systematically distinguish real escalation from media reamplification. Question 6:42 a.m. 5/31 2026. President is right. We USA are standing as the whole as a world leader. The statement reflects political framing, not universal established fact. In international relations, world leader can be different things depending on the metric being used. Military reach. The US has most extensive global force projection capability. Economic influence. It remains one of the largest and most influential economies. Financial system role. The dollar is still the primary global reserve currency. Alliance network. It has a broad security and diplomatic alliance. So in those dimensions, many analysts would say the US is a leading global power, often the most influential in certain domains. However, world leader is not formal title in global governance. Leadership is contested and shaped across region and institution. Other power like China, the UAE, Bloc, India, etc. also hold significant and growing influence in different domains. So the more precise way to state it academically would be the United States remain the major global power with the dominant influence in several strategic, economic, and military systems, but global power is distributed rather than singularly controlled. If you want, I can break this down into structured power map, military, economic, technological, diplomatic, so you can see where leadership is strong, shared, or shifting. Question. Definition is varied in different kind of lens, but the obvious is still a cut above. Yes, that's a fair way to describe it. As long as we keep the distinction clear between relative advantage and absolute hierarchy. In international relations, account above usually translate into something more structured. Capability gap, higher reach scale, and operational depth in multiple domains. System influence, ability to shape rules, institution, and responses. Not just participate in them. Network centrality, being a hub in alliance, finance, logistic, and security structure. So your intuition map to this idea, a state can be a leading without being uncontested, and dominant in the key domains without being universally dominant. The importance refinement. What makes the phrase a cut above useful is that in comparative, not absolute. It avoids claiming total control of the system. It still acknowledges measurable asymmetry. It fit real world multi-bipolar condition than the number one in everything. Where your framing is strongest. You're essentially describing multidimensional leadership where military power is not equal to economic power, is not equal to technological power, not equal to diplomatic influence. Leadership depends on which axis you're measuring. So the more precise synthesis is, global power is not singular, it is distributed across domain, but some actors maintain consistent top-tier position across several of them. If you want to take their earlier lens idea further, we can turn this into a multi-axis dominance matrix. So a cut above becomes measurable instead of just descriptive. Question. Then compartmentalization between public and private education is real but depend on the person studying the two systems, which is better. Yes, there's a real structured distinction between public and private education system, but the idea that one is universally better doesn't hold up. It depends on what you measure and what the student is optimizing for. Number one, the real compartmentalization you're noticing. Public and private education differ along system level dimension. Funding structure, class size and resource density, admission selectivity, curriculum flexibility, teacher to student ratio, institutional accountability mechanism. So they are not just two versions of the same thing. They are different optimization system. Number two, when public education tend to outperform public system, often excel in broader access, selective filtering, standardized baseline education, social diversity exposure, large-scale institutional consistency, affordability, and scalability. In engineering term, high coverage, low variance, systemic stability. Number three, when private education tend to outperform, private system often excel in smaller class size, resources intensity per student, specialized program, faster curriculum adaptation, network effect, elite peer clustering. In engineering term, higher input density, faster feedback loop, more customatization. 4. The key truth better depend on the object function. There is no universal winner because the system is not optimized for the same goal. Example, if the goal is mass literacy and equal access, public systems are structurally stronger. If the goal is accelerated specialization or elite signaling, private systems often have an edge. So the real question is better for what outcome and under what constraint. Number 5, the hidden factor people miss. The strongest predictor is often not the system itself, but the student discipline, home environment, access to learning, resource outside school, motivation, and self-study capacity. In many cases, individual agency outweighs institution type. Number 6, clean synthesis. Your idea of compartmentalization between system is accurate in structure. Public system, broad, standardized, stable. Private system, selective, intensive, adaptive. But the correct conclusion is that they are complementary education architecture, not hierarchical replacement. If you want, I can map this into system engineering model of education: input, processing, output. So you can compare them like a two different type of engineered system rather than option-based category. Question: when you define these two differentiate mass literacy and equal access and accelerated specialization or elite signaling, it comes up to sound like privilege versus right for rich and the poor. It can sound like that, but the framing is too bit compressed, and it risks turning a structural comparison into a moral or class level, which is not actually how the system are designed. Let's separate function from perception. Number 1, what those two concepts actually mean without the social overlay. Mass literacy and equal access. This is a system-wide baseline objective. Ensure most people reach a minimum education standard. Maintain national workforce literacy. Provide standardized foundational knowledge that is about coverage and inclusion at scale. It is not inherently for the poor, but it's designed for universal population reach. Accelerated specialization and elite signaling. This is a high-density optimization objective. Faster academic progression in certain track. Access to more resources per student. Stronger institutionalized branding and networks. This is about selection, acceleration, and differentiation. It is not inherently for the rich, but is often correlate with selective access due to a cost or admission. Number 2, why it feels like privilege versus rights. The interpretation emerges because public systems are typically tax-funded and universal. Private systems are often fee-based and selective. So people map it into rights, guaranteed access public, privilege conditional access private, but the mapping is sociological perception, not the core design logic. Number three, the engineering view more precise lens for the system perspective. Number three, the engineering view more precise lens. From the system perspective, system type, optimization target. Public education, population-wide baseline competence. Private education, performance density and differentiation. Neither is inherently moral, it different optimization function under resource constraint. Number four, where inequality actually enter important distinction. Inequality is not embedded in the definition of system but in income distribution, geographic access, institution quality variation, admission filtering mechanism. So inequality is more about resource distribution in society, not the conceptual purpose of education model. 5. Clean synthesis. A more accurate way to frame it is public and private education represent two different allocation strategy. One prioritize universal baseline capability. The other prioritize concentration, development, and differentiation. Social inequality influences access pattern but does not define the conceptual purpose of either system. If you want, I can map this in your early Lake Bay Ocean model, where education become a pipeline of knowledge density rather than rich versus poor split. As shown here, there's a picture of two men, Hitler versus Stalin, the Eastern Front, 1941 to 1945. John Moser, author of The Myth of the Great War. On this side, the Hitler-Stalin study in public education as an accidental question only. Hitler versus Stalin, the Eastern Front, 1944-1945, paperback, June 28, 2011. The severity of Soviet losses, which have been minimized due to Soviet propaganda, and the importance of the Allied invasion of North Africa and Sicily, among other factors, forcing Hitler to deploy troops, saving the Soviet from disaster. The German invasion of the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941 began a war that lasted nearly 4 years and created a war that bloodiest theater in the World War II. In the conventional narratives of this war, Hitler was defeated by Stalin because, like Napoleon. Yes, figures like Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin are commonly studied in public education system, but it's not endorsement of them. They are typically included in subjects like history, social studies, and political science for specific academic reason. To understand World War II and the Holocaust, Hitler, to study authoritarian regime, totalitarian system, and Soviet history, Stalin. To analyze how extreme political systems emerge and operate, to examine human rights violation and their consequences. Important clarification: when public school teaches that these figures of purpose is usually historical analysis plus critical thinking about political system, not admiration or promotion. Why they are included in public education? Because they are part of major global historical event, geopolitical shift that still affect the modern world, case studies in governance failure, propaganda, and mass violence. Leaving them out would create gaps in understanding 20th century history. The key educational principle: public education include difficult historical figure to teach what happened, why it happened, how system can fail, how societies respond afterwards. Linking back to your elite question, so even in mass literacy system, the goal is not just basic skill, it also include structural understanding to real-world historical and political complexity. If you want, I can also explain how direct countries, US, Europe, Asia, frame this topic differently in their curricula. That's actually where things get more nuance. Question: what is the difference between pamantasan ng Silangan compared to pamantasan ng Pilipinas, specific UP? Here's a clear structural composition between pamantasan ng Silangan, commonly University of the East, and UE, and Pamantasan ng Pilipinas, University of the Philippines, UP system. Core identity. Pamantasan ng Silangan University of the East, UE, private university is a type. Founded 1946, orientation, career focus, must access private education, funding, tuition plus private administration. Pamantasan ng Pilipinas, University of the Philippines, UP system. Type public state university system, founded 1908. Orientation, National Research University, funding, government funded, tax supported. 2. Admission selectivity, UE, the more open admission designed to accommodate large student population. Entrance requirements are generally less competitive, UP. UP, high selective entrance exam, UPCAT, limited slot per campus program, among the most competitive university in the Philippines. The academic focus, UE, strong in accountancy, dentistry, business, allied health program, emphasis professional preparation and employability. UP, strong in engineering, medicine, law, social science, research field, emphasis research policy and national development. Most cost structure, number 4, UE is tuition-based, private, can be more expensive depending on program. Financial aid available but limited compared to the state subsidy scale, UP. Heavily subsidized by government, very low tuition or free under universal access to quality tertiary education law for eligible student. 5. Academic environment, UE. Largest student population per campus, more flexibility, access, more industrial practical orientation, UP, smaller intake per program per competitive, strong academic pressure, heavy emphasis on critical thinking, research, and analysis. The final neutral conclusion, neither is universally better. They are optimized for a different function. UE, accessible professional education at scale. UP, selective training plus research, national leadership formation. If you want, I can also map both school into earlier lake-based ocean model so you can see how knowledge depth versus access of specialization play out in the real education system. Private versus privilege, accessibility plus professional education at scale, UE is getting them by common people's selective training plus research plus national leadership formation, UP. By elite is selecting by palakasan system, who you know. That framing mixes real structure differences with a strong assumption about how selection works, so it needs careful separation. Number 1, right versus privilege is not the correct split. Both systems are not designed to right versus privilege in moral sense. UP is University of the Philippines, public state-funded limited slot. UE is University of the East, private institution-based highly capacity access. The difference is primarily research model plus capacity plus selection pressure, not moral entitlement. Number 2, on elite versus common people, is that it's true that UP is highly selective, U is more accessible, but elite versus common people is the oversimplification. More accurate, UP select for academic fronts under constrained slot. U operates in broader admission capacity plus tuition enrollment model. So the filter is perform plus competition, UP versus access plus affordability plus program availability, UE. Number 3, on the claim palakasan system, where you need to be precise. This is where you need to be precise. UP admission, especially undergrad, are primarily based on UP cut score plus ranking and quota system per program. There's also affirmative pathway, regional representation, alternative admission special program. Is there influence in society in general institution in any large system? Allegation of favoritism sometimes arise, but there's no reliable systemic evidence that UP admission are based on who you know as a rule. It is structurally designed to be a merit-based within constrained capacity. 2, no large institution is completely free from human imperfection. 4, why it can be feel like elite selection, because UP has very low acceptance rate, high academic cut-off score, strong reputation concentration, this great perception of elite filtering, but the filter is measurable academic competition, not social connection by default. The key engineering system correlation. A more accurate model is UP High Demand Constraint Capacity Selection System, UE High Access Scalable Education System. Different optimization target. UP Maximize Selective Excellence per seat. UE Maximize Educational Throughput, professional output. 6. Final synthesis. It becomes misleading when reduced to right versus privilege or common versus elite. A more accurate framing is different institutions designed for different constraints, selective optimization versus mass accessibility. If you want, I can map this as system engineering model education inequality perception, because what you're really touching here is how selection systems are socially interpreted, not just how they function. All in the government position is from UP. No, that's not correct. It's common perception, but in reality, government positions in the Philippines are not exclusively filled by UP graduates. 1. Where government officially actually came from. People in government came from many different universities, including UP, University of the Philippines, Ateneo de Manila University, De La Salle University, University of Santo Tomas, State University, regional SUCs, private provincial college, foreign university, military academic, example PMA from some defense role. So the talent pipeline is highly mixed. Number 2, why UP seems represented. There are structural reasons for that perception. A. Policy and civil service concentration. UP is strong produced in public administration, political science, economic law. UP College of Law is highly influential. 10. This field naturally feed into government work. B. Network effect. UP has strong alumni network in government agencies. Historical role as a national university. Proximity to policy institution in Metro Manila. C. Visibility bias. High-profile position, senator, cabinet members, judges, economists often get media attention, and many of them happen to be a UP graduate. So it will dominant event when it isn't exclusive. In reality, government stopping. Government is actually bureaucratic and merits-based civil service eligibility system. Build through exam qualification, experience, and political appointment for some roles. So the entry path are education plus exam experience plus appointment depending on position. Not a single university pipeline. 4. Plain conclusion. UP is a major contributor to government leader talent, but it's not the only source, and it does not control the monopolized government position. If you want, I can break down which university dominates specific section: law, engineering, military, local government, economics. That's where the pattern becomes more nuanced and interesting. It's about who you know. Now, in a simple and universal way, in government, the large institution outcomes are usually shaped by multiple layers, not just who you know, but pure merit alone. The formal layer, what is supposed to be happen. Most positions follow structured system like civil service examination for government roles, credential and qualification, ranking, screening, and interviews, legal hiring procedure. This layer is designed to be merit-based and rules-driven. Number 2, the informal layer, what can influence outcome, like many countries. There also be professional network and rehearsal, mentorship, connection, institution, reputation, which school you came from, visibility and prior working relationship. There's where you know who you know can matter, but usually as access to opportunity and recommendation, not automatic selection. 3. The political layer for appointment of position. Some roles are cabinet position, agency head, political advisor. These are often based on trust, alignment, working relationship, proven competence. Here's relationship matter more, but it is still alongside capability. 4. The key correction. It is not who you know, only who you know, and also not only merit. It is a mixed system where merit is the formal gate and network can influence visibility and opportunity in some cases. 5. What it feel like who you know. Because human naturally notice visible appointment, repeated name in leadership, cluster from certain school or group, but that can hide the larger invisible base of exam pass, application rejected, career progression over time. 6. Clean synthesis. A more accurate statement is government system operate on formal merit structure, but informal network and reputation institution reputation can influence access and career pathway in certain roles. If you want, I can map this in the decision pipeline model so you can see exactly where merit dominates and where network have influence. Question: what is the percentage that graduate land in the promising position? There's no reliable percentage that say X percentage of UP graduates land in promising position because the phrase promising position is subjective. It depends on what counts as promising: high salary, government leadership, executive role, research career, international employment, entrepreneurship. What can be said more confidently about University of the Philippines? UP graduates are generally overrepresented in leadership, law, academia, public policy, medicine, engineering, and government compared to the share of the total populations. Admission is highly competitive, which already filter for strong academic performers. Many employers view UP positively because of its academic reputation. For context, only a fraction of UP CAT applicants are admitted each year, making entry high selective. But in the important correction, a UP diploma does not automatically translate into executive position, political power, career success. Many UP graduates work ordinary jobs, enter public service, pursue research, or face the same employment pressure as everyone else. Likewise, many successful Filipino did not come from UP. The strongest conclusion supported by evidence instead of what percentage land in promising position. A better question is, does UP increase the probability of access to competitive opportunities? The answer is generally yes, because of academic reputation, alumni network, employer recognition, selective admission, and strong performance in many professional fields. But probability is not guaranteed. Using your earlier engineering framework, factor effect, school reputation increases opportunity visibility, personal skill affect performance, network affect access, experience affect advancement, timing and economy affect outcomes, individual effort affect a long-term trajectory. So career outcome is usually success. Success is not equal school alone. Success is approximate school plus skill plus opportunity and network and timing execution. The school can improve the starting position, but it does not completely determine the final result. Question: how about the movie Parpax, the scientist in large hangar being fire squad idea, while the Philippine Senate by Cayetano and Bato is giving a rotten practice of political position dynamics? If you are referring to the movie Parpax, the firing squad imagery represent an extreme authoritarian dynamic, dissent, failure, or perceived disloyal in punishment through fears and coercion. When you compare to the debate involving Philippine politicians such as Alan Pierre Cayetano and Robert De La Rosa, you're making analogy about political culture, not a literal comparison. Whether political practice is rotten is ultimate judgment. Different observer may interpret the same behavior differently. Supporter may see aggressive political tactic as strong leadership, accountability, or loyal. Critics may see them as a partisan maneuver, power politics, or institutional dysfunction. Analysts tend to ask whether the behavior improves the weakened democratic institution, transparency, and public trust. From the system perspective, the more useful question is, does the political behavior strengthen the institution, or does it primarily strengthen the individual within it? That's often the dividing line between healthy political competition and unhealthy political dynamics. Your Parpax analogy seems to be expressing a concern that political actor may sometimes prioritize loyalty, influence, and factional advantage over open deliberation and institutional integrity. That's a recognizable concern in many democracies, not just in Philippines. The challenge is separating evidence-based criticism from assumption about motives, because motives are often difficult to prove. So I would frame it less as this is a rotten practice and more as, does this pattern in behavior produce better governance, accountability, and public outcomes, or does it primarily reinforce political power structure? That question is easier to analyze using observable evidence rather than political allegiance. The emperor's new clause say in the matter like, I will not accept the international law if the Supreme Court released decision as his request, then again looking for another alibi, asking the help of local small court. The idea of saying whether politics, as Erap say, sabi nga ni Erap, whether lang yan. Hindi kayo habang panahon nasa kapangyarihan, a rotten system. You're combining several metaphors, the emperor's new clothes, people publicly accepting narratives they privately doubt. Whether lang yan, open attributed to Joseph Estrada, political fortune change today's powerful figure may be out of the power tomorrow. Court, international law and political maneuvering tension between institution and political interests. The concern you're expressing seems to be if leaders or political actors accept legal ruling only when favorable and seek alternative venues when unfavorable. Does that indicate a weakness in the system? That legitimate question is political science. However, it's important to distinguish between number one, using legal appeals and alternative court that are lawfully available. One is part of the many legal system. Two, parties often pursue every available legal remedy. Two, undetermined institution by accepting only favorable outcomes. One, this is where critics may argue that respect for the rule of law is becoming conditional. Two, the issue is not losing case but refusing to recognize legitimate authority when the outcome is unfavorable. From a system perspective, a healthy system is not one of where everyone agreed with decision. Rather, a healthy system is one of the participants continue to recognize the legitimacy of the process even when they lose. That's a difficult standard for any democracy. Your emperor's new clothes analogy fits when people believe everyone sees a problem, but few are willing to say it publicly. Yet, history often also show the opposite can occur. People become convinced that hidden problem exists, while evidence remain mixed or contested. Question: you even not honoring the highest court in the land, why it is uselessness whether lang yan, Bato de la Rosa. If you're referring to statements attributed to Ronald de la Rosa and interpreting them as so, why honoring the highest court if political power changes anyway? And you're touching on the classic tension between rule of law and political realism. There are two competing views. View one, rule of law. The argument is institutions matter more than individual leaders. Under this view, court decisions should be respected even when inconvenient, because otherwise every group would follow only the rulings it likes. The legitimacy of the system depends on accepting outcome one disagree with. View 2, political realism. The argument is power changes, administration changes, today's decision makers won't be in the power forever. This is closer to the sentiment behind whether lang yan. It emphasizes the temporary nature of political influence. The reason these two views clash in the one is that one asks whether what to do the rules require, while the other asks what happened in the practice when power shift. Both observation can be true and at the same time. Your praise a rotten system is a conclusion about institutional health. Political scientists usually look for indicators such as are court order enforced? Do government officials comply with judgment? Can institution constrain powerful actor? Are legal remedies available to opponents? Do peaceful transfer of power occur? If those mechanisms consistently fail, critics argue institutions are weakening. If they continue functioning despite political conflict, supporters argue that system is still working even imperfectly. Using your earlier engineering analogy, a system is tested not when everyone agree, but when decisions are unpopular and the system still function. That's often where the real measure of institution strength appear.